What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Crossover U podcast, brought to you as always on the Crossover channel. My name is Kanaye. I'm joined as always with Josh, and today we are bringing you a recap of the second weekend, both the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 rounds of the tournament, and we're going to give you the first Crossover U Final Four overview, predictions, whatever you want to call it, going into the Final Four. So pretty exciting weekend of basketball. For some people, a little disappointing. I'll definitely say some games maybe didn't live up to the hype that I thought they were going to have, just in terms of how competitive the games were. But there were also a few other good games. I'll ask you first, Josh, if there were any games that particularly stood out to you.
I got to give credit to Texas Tech. They made some really good games possible. Both, honestly, almost all their games that they played were very entertaining. I would say they're definitely the most entertaining team to watch. Not that I was rooting for them the entire time or at any time. I really didn't see Texas Tech going that far. I'm quite surprised they made an Elite Eight given the team that they had. But when the clutch times mattered, it counted for Texas Tech, especially in that Sweet 16 game against Arkansas. Arguably one of the best comebacks, actually the second largest comeback win ever seen in a NCAA tournament game, which is pretty big if you ask me. Amazing comeback for them. Then did the exact same thing the game after with Florida, held them on the ropes, and then they were up 10 with like 4 minutes left, under 4 minutes left, up like 7 with like 3. You don't really blow games like that, especially with the ticket to the Final Four on the line, and they blew it in every way, shape, and form. You give up 3 back-to-back threes. You have an insane performance from Walter Clayton, who I think also, if you can transition quickly with that, Florida has had some very fun games in
Definitely.
both their times. I really liked, obviously, the Texas Tech Florida game, but their Sweet 16 matchup was good. Honestly, that whole region that Florida was in had probably the best games, in my opinion. I think like most of those top games that we've seen so far have come from that region alone.
Yeah, I definitely like how you mentioned the Texas Tech Arkansas game. That was just some midnight madness there. That game would go into OT. I'd say that Thursday overall was a really great game really great day for those games. Obviously, the Florida Maryland game wasn't very competitive, which was unfortunate. Stuff to about Willard, who there's just a little bit of turmoil around that program, just with everything that went down with Kevin Willard and how he handled kind of his exit from the Maryland program. But outside of that, obviously that Bama BYU game was a blowout. But at least if it's going to be a blowout, you'd like to see some history being made. Bama breaking the tournament record for most threes made in a game. Mark Sears 10 threes on his own. And hey, I'm really proud to say that we predicted it right here on the Crossover U podcast that the good Caleb Love was going to show up against Duke, but it still was not going to be enough. I got to give Arizona credit. They played fairly well. They didn't get blown out the way that Duke kind of has rolled its opponents through this tournament. And Caleb Love went out on a good note. He has nothing to be ashamed of in that game. But yeah, outside of that, Friday games were solid too. I definitely thought Michigan Auburn was good at times, and of course Auburn ended up pulling away at the end. They were down 7 or 8 at one point, so it was looking a little scary for Auburn there. But that Purdue Houston game was great. The Ole Miss Michigan State game was also great too. Tennessee Kentucky. I think it was evident that Kentucky was going to they were just going to run out of gas at some point, and then they fumed out there. And that Tennessee team was pretty good, which was definitely surprising. How they got. How they got smoked the way they did against Houston in the Elite Eight. I picked Tennessee to beat Houston. I got to give a lot of credit to Kelvin Sampson, LJ Cryer, who didn't shoot it well against Kentucky, but turned it around against Tennessee in the Elite Eight. But yeah, again, pretty solid games for the weekend. A lot of credit goes to Ole Miss for the run that they went on, and but yeah, Walter Clayton Jr. I think he's really proven himself to be one of the clutchest players in recent years of the tournament, honestly. Just the amount of big shots he's hit, Steph Curry-esque shots he hit against Texas Tech, for sure, in that Elite Eight matchup. But yeah, I'm really excited for this Final Four. I thought it was a fairly solid weekend of games. But yeah, do you have any more takeaways from the Elite Eight? Sweet 16.
I mean, I definitely agree. I honestly, yes, I kind of wish we saw slightly more given the opportunities we had. We really had a lot with considering we had one seeds and two seeds almost exclusively making it other than St. John's. So you could have expected a lot of good games on the 1-4, 1-5. I personally like the Michigan game as well. I know Michigan held on for quite a while, as you mentioned, and we had great opportunities to see these upsets. Unfortunately, nothing really materialized, but that's just kind of how the way goes. And I think it just shows the level of hierarchy we've had this year. Obviously, the mid majors did not perform well, and we didn't see the upsets we were expecting to see or could have seen. But then we also are seeing now a higher tier level within the high seeds. All the one seeds, obviously making the Final Four for the first and second time since 2008, also played in San Antonio, if you knew. Uh, but they really looked so much better than even the two seeds. The two seeds didn't even look as good as they should have been, and I think every two seed really showed weaknesses throughout all their games before they ended up making it to their L, regardless of where that was. It's hard to really tell because I don't want to put this as a new chalk that we're seeing or we're being told about right now that it's all NIL's fault, it's all the transfer portal's fault. I don't fully agree with that statement. I feel like sometimes you're just going to get years like this, and I think at the same time it's very rare. This is only the second time we're getting all one seed, and even if it doesn't play out the way we think it is, it's still a rare achievement. Even if what like 7% of all brackets chose all Final Four teams, I think it's still I think it's still a big, big movement. And keep in mind, 2 years ago we had the complete opposite argument. We had five seed San Diego State and
Right.
Miami, UConn, like all those shenanigans. It was the same argument. It was NIL and transport are flattening the game. They're making the mid
Right.
majors good. They're making things even. And now 2 years later, we're having the opposite conversation.
Yeah. No, I definitely
And
agree.
it's
Yeah.
just one. That's the way I'm looking at it right now. If the trend continues, maybe we talk about it more as a community. But I don't understand why there's so much scrutiny being put on both these possible ideas when it really doesn't matter that much. I really don't think that's the case. It's just good coaches and good schemes are building good teams out of these two metrics. Obviously, not the smaller teams can't fit the NIL, but you can train prospects. Any team can do that. So I don't understand where this argument is coming from that this is why we're getting chalk at this level.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely agree. I think the level of hypocrisy across the sport in terms of fans who watch college basketball is really just it doesn't make sense to me. Like you mentioned, the argument 2 years back where NIL's made it more even, and now it's kind of gone in reverse direction, which I kind of do slightly agree with. In some senses, I think a lot of the larger schools do have more NIL allocation to go and get talent as opposed to some of the mid-major schools, which is maybe why we didn't see as many Cinderella or any Cinderellas for that matter this year. But I mean, even going back to last year, I mean, it almost felt like the whole season that UConn and Purdue were on a collision course, and no one really complained all too much when those two met up in the national championship game. This year, in the Final Four, we have three of the top 10 Ken Palm teams of all time in the Final Four. And yeah, you could talk about, hey, maybe this tournament hasn't been as exciting in terms of seeing Cinderellas, go on runs, but the good teams have to play each other at some point, like we saw in this past weekend, and like we're going to see in the Final Four. Like I just mentioned, three of the top 10 Ken Pom teams of all time, those being Duke, Auburn, and Florida, are going to have to play each other. Oh, Houston,
And
my mistake. Houston's 10. Okay, so four of the top 10, unless I'm mistaken of Florida being in there. I can't fully remember. Maybe
no,
they're
no,
not.
they're all in this. This is supposed
Yeah,
to be the the four bet. This is the statistically the best Final Four we could see.
yeah,
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at 2008 as well, when we all had those one seeds again, we had a nice Final Four. We had a nice Natty. We had that Mario Chalmers March Madness moment. And I think, in a way, sacrificing the upsets we were going to see in the first and second rounds has led us to the opportunity to have a good final. Because previous years we haven't really had that. Like Purdue and UConn
Exactly.
was interesting, but that Final Four we knew nothing was going to happen. That Elite Eight we never really saw anything special to. 2023, I mean, there was obviously just madness all over the place. Really knew who was going to win, but by the time the Elite Eight was over, everyone pretty much knew UConn was going to win that tournament. I feel like this year all four teams have a good shot.
For sure.
Which
Definitely.
for the first time in a long time, all four teams having a good shot is cool. We can see three epic games, some of the best games we could see. I really don't want to hate. I don't want to hate at all about this year.
And for the sake of the sport, I really do hope that these games are close. And I mean, I hope that they're high energy, wire to wire, just because I think it'll do so much for to show fans that hey, yeah, it might have been a chalky year, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get the best teams playing each other. Like we just mentioned, top four, for all four of these teams are in the top 10 KenPom all time in terms of their adjusted efficiencies. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a good point to turn to making our predictions and overviewing the final four matchups. I'd say we start with Auburn, Florida.
I think it's gonna be a big one, and it's two storylines.
Definitely.
Obviously, the Auburn storyline is getting the job done. They were the top one, number one team. I feel like no one could beat them in the regular season. They slipped a little bit, but they kept that strength. They're one of the best teams, actually the best team Bruce Pearl's ever created. This would be
Most definitely.
huge for Auburn as a whole. That's their first title. That's Bruce Pearl's first title. That's a huge W for guys that have been chasing the big moments like Chad Baker Mazzara, like obviously Johnny Broom. Dahad Pettiford gets a huge chip for himself. Like as a freshman, that's probably enough to get you in the first round if you want to go to the draft, which I think he should. It would be the best SEC team we've seen since that Anthony Davis Kentucky squad, if you're going to ask me. And then on the other side, it's Florida, who could have just the epic story of being well underseeded and underranked to start the year. Normally, saw me. I saw them. I knew it was going to happen. And
Yeah.
we saw just the most amazing combination of Walter Clayton, Chinalu, Thomas Hugh. Like this organization is not filled with incredibly good players. If I remember correctly, Walter Clayton was a zero-star prospect coming out of high school, and he's turned into the best player in this tournament so far. Like this would be just a crowning achievement for Florida, probably the best Florida team we've ever seen. I think even better than the '07 squad that went back to back, if you're going to ask me. And I think it'd be a huge change in the lineup for with Golden, Todd Golden, the coach.
Yep.
Never won a tournament game before this year, which is insane to think about. And here he is 2 games away, and it's completely different squads, which is why this game I think is probably the best one we're going to see. This might be better than the national championship, in my opinion, and it's hard to tell because originally, before the tournament started, I would have chosen Auburn this game, but Florida just doesn't manage to lose.
Yeah.
I feel like if you play the way Florida's played, you don't lose those games. Like Florida plays so awkwardly that it gives teams an unnecessary advantage. That's the UConn game. That's the Texas Tech game. Even for the first half, that's the Maryland game. And then in that second half, just something flips. Like I don't really know
Right.
how to describe it, but just a change in demeanor, especially from guys like Hugh and Walter Clayton, who just explode. They just
Yeah.
explode out of nowhere, and they gain all the points they need to gain, and magically they're from 10 points down to 2 points up. So I'm gonna go Florida. It's a hard pass because I know Auburn can do basically the same thing, but Auburn hasn't been tested as much as Florida has. I think Florida is the most battle tested and tournament experienced team right now. And if you want a little extra reminder, Elijah Martin had 27 points in
Yeah.
2023 in his final. If that's not enough to show you that this team can be battling at all ends, then I just don't know. I just think they manhandle Auburn and they win like OT or something. Yeah, I think it's gonna be an epic game to be honest with you.
Yeah, I definitely think it's gonna be a really good game too. I think it could be wire to wire. I really do like how you mentioned Todd Golden never winning a tournament game prior to the season. I think this Final Four is really so important. And I don't think enough attention is being brought to the point that the way this Final Four plays out opens up a crazy realm of possibilities of what can happen for teams, and how teams are constructed going forward in the future of the sport. Like you mentioned, a coach can step in to a year not having a tournament win prior and go on a Final Four run like we're seeing with Todd Golden this year. If Auburn ends up winning this natty, then the way teams are going to be constructed going forward, they're going to go after guys who are more experienced. I think Auburn's average age in their starting lineup is around 22 years old. Teams are going to go after more experienced veteran guys who are older. If Duke wins, then it's going to go back to teams building their cores around a star freshman, these 5-star guys coming out of high school, and supplementing them with veteran role players. If Houston wins, then people are going to see that culture, toughness, grit is still enough to win a national championship. And none of the coaches this year in the Final Four have won a national championship before. So someone is going to be bringing home their first natty, which is I think is really cool to see. Um, yeah, I think that's like the great point because it's going to show you that everyone's going to want it so desperately bad, especially Sampson, who's in his 70s, been coaching for 30 years, hasn't won a natty yet. Bruce Pearl, like you mentioned, he's been coaching for 25 plus years. Had a chance with Auburn in 2019. Obviously, didn't end up going their way. Point the blame to a missed call on double dribble and maybe a bad call on the 3-point shot. But yeah, obviously John Shire winning his first natty in his first 3 seasons kind of puts him on the Coach K trajectory line, which I think is obviously what Duke fans want and have kind of been talking about him being able to do. And then, of course, with Todd Golden, I mean, never winning a tournament game to coming in and possibly winning a national championship is crazy to think about. But yeah, getting back to the Florida Auburn game, I think the stat just always recurs in my head where number one overall seeds tend to not win the national championship over the last 20 years outside of UConn last year. And, I feel like at some point that's going to come back to light. And well, I do admit Janai Broom has played better in the second weekend than what we saw from him out of him in the first weekend. I just think, like you mentioned, Florida's really battle tested. They've been challenged the most out of any one seed so far. And yeah, like they have rough first halves a lot of the times. Walter Clayton maybe won't shoot well in the first half, but they'll just get into that zone. Walter Clayton will get into that zone where he's just unconscious. He'll get to his spots and knock down huge shots like we saw against UConn, like we saw against Texas Tech. And I think that battle testing is going to come to light. And like you mentioned, Elijah Martin played really well in the Final Four for FAU 2 years back. And I mean, Congdon hasn't even played great yet. Thomas Howell's been really good for them off the bench. I like Florida in this game.
No, I mean we both agreed on that one, and
Mhm.
I really could see either team making it once again, but yeah, it's really just Florida's experience that can get through with it.
Definitely.
As well. I guess then we can go on to Duke and Houston, which I
Houston.
think went down perfectly well with the uh, setting, which I did as well with Auburn and Florida. Big, big game for both of them as well. I
Right.
personally favorite on Duke. I could see a way where Houston wins this, but Houston has, like Florida, been tested, I think, a lot harder than Duke has. I get it. Duke went through a good Arizona team and a good Bama team that made them look funny. It made them look like they were just nothing to them. And Houston did struggle. They had that close game against Purdue, which take what you want out of it. It's still a win for Houston, regardless of how it ended. And not didn't really struggle, but showed off against Houston, against Tennessee a lot, but didn't exactly convince me that they could have taken down Duke. They have a good shot. It's Kelvin Sampson. It's hard to really say, but the Devils are just so much better than I think
Yeah.
any one seed
Yeah.
here. And if Cooper Flag plays anything like he's had in the past few games, we see Khan play well, we see Kaman play well. I mean, the freshman squad is working. It's firing on all cylinders, and I just don't know how you defeat this team. I don't know how you let this team get under 90 points. They've been scoring so much. Their shots keep landing. They've been dominating the paint. Cooper can shoot basically anywhere. Khan can shoot basically anywhere, and they are going against the best defense. So it's hard to really say if things change. I think Duke can get hit in the first half. Maybe they are even down a point or two. But how do you defend 6'9" perfect player for his caliber in Cooper Flag? There's just no one who's tall enough or defensively minded enough, I guess, even on a team like Houston that can get around him. I think he's just a cheat code. I don't know how else to describe him.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I know I've talked about it so much this year about how I thought the inexperience that Duke had with their freshmen and, maybe John Shire not being able to win close games, not being able to win big games. I got to say, with the way they play this tournament, they've made me believe in them a lot more. And I really do think they are the favorite to win the national championship at this point. I mean, just with what they're able to do. I mean, I saw of every player on the roster that plays 10 plus minutes a game, they're all 6'5" or taller. And just what they do defensively and be able to essentially switch everything. I mean, they made one of the best offensive teams in the country in Alabama look below average, if I'm being honest with you. They held Mark Sears to only 6 points, I believe, in that Elite Eight game, which is, I mean, not good at all, considering just what he did against BYU the game prior and what he's done throughout his career at Bama. And yeah, I mean, they bend, but they don't break like we saw against Arizona. They gave up a few runs. They had a little bit of tough time guarding Caleb Love at certain points. But again, they bend, they don't break. They're just so fundamentally sound. I mean, the way they beat Bama was just off of backdoor cuts and pick and roll, and Bama just couldn't defend it. And to Houston's credit, they're a lot better of a defensive team than Alabama is. But I just don't think that they have enough firepower offensively to keep up with Duke. And I just don't know that they have the size either to really handle Duke on the glass as well. I think Kaman Malach has been really, really good, especially in that game against Bama, where, I mean, they really just abused Bama in pick and roll situations. And yeah, again, that there is a world where Kelvin Sampson, as experienced as he is able to drop a good enough game plan to maybe get out with a close win. But I don't see, I am really having a tough time seeing Duke losing this game.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's listen, like I said before, all four teams could win. I just don't really. I feel like Houston though is probably the least likely. I'd be very surprised if they did, to be honest. Win. I will say though, if they do win that game, they probably would win the Natty. But getting through Duke is just it's proven to be impossible. And without Auburn in the Natty, now that we predicted that as well, I don't even know if they could be humbled by Florida. Which,
Right.
given the run Florida's been on, it's hard to say. I think a Florida Duke Natty the generations. That's like a North Carolina Villanova. That
Right.
might be one of the best natties we could see. It's Walter Clayton on this little magical March Madness legend run, and then Cooper trying to be the best one and done player, arguably of all time,
Right.
better than
I mean,
Melo, better than even his former Duke top one guy in Zion. It's really hard to say that he loses. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, if Duke goes on and wins, you have to put Coop up there with the likes of, like you mentioned, Carmelo. Anthony Davis at Kentucky. I mean, Kevin Durant. He didn't win the Natty at Texas, but he had a really good freshman season. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of legacy is on the line in this Final Four, and I kind of want to go back to that Auburn Florida game just really quickly. I want to ask you, who do you think the best player on the floor is going to be in that game?
In an Auburn Florida game, I would probably give it to Clayton. I really just
Yeah.
see regard. I just don't know if there's any way to guard him the way he plays. Like I think the best example is that no look, he turns around, runs back to the 3 point line without
Yeah.
anybody on defense noticing, and just shooting the three, and it goes in. I
Yeah.
don't
I mean, that was
I don't
that
see those
that
shots.
shot was so Steph Curry esque. I mean, it was ridiculous. I
I mean,
mean,
he's playing like that. If he's gonna play like
yeah.
Curry, you're not winning. I don't know
Right.
how else to describe him. And I wouldn't say he's better than a Broom, for example, but in the moment he is. In the moment he
Yeah.
can carry more than Broom has. Obviously, Broom had a little bit of an injury scare in the Elite Eight, so I don't
Right.
even know that to be 100%. the Hod has to get his game up. He started well, but just didn't have the performance I was hoping he would have in Michigan State game. It does depend on Auburn's defense can outrun Florida's offense, especially late game. In the late game, Florida tends to score a lot. Their buckets start to land. They start to get the experience that we've been talking about. Auburn needs to curb that. They need to curb that in every way possible, and I just don't know if they can do that. And I'm just
Yeah.
not too sure.
I mean, I definitely think Florida's more athletic than Auburn. If they can get in transition, I think Auburn is going to have a really tough time. Um, but I mean, yeah, Auburn has shot makers. Broom has played better, but I am, like you mentioned, he did tweak his shoulder, I believe it was, in that Elite Eight game against Michigan State. So that's definitely going to be something to watch for in terms of if he's at 100% or not. I know he was kind of letting it hang in the later stretches of that game, that left shoulder or right shoulder. I forget which one he tweaked, but yeah, I mean, Tahad, like you mentioned, he needs to make shots. Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, they got those guys got to play well as well. Um, but yeah, I think Florida wins. I think Duke wins, and I think that sets up a really good national championship game, which we will be previewing, I believe, at the but we'll give a preview video for leading up to that national championship game. But again, really, really excited for these Final Four games. Like I mentioned, like we both mentioned, a lot on the line here, just in terms of how teams might choose to construct their rosters in the future, in future years. Just how the sport is going to change depending on who wins and what people see um, leads to winning. And again, a lot of legacy on the line for coaches, players. So I'm definitely really, really excited. They should be really good games. And I hope for the sake of the sport and to prove everyone wrong who has been, everyone who has been saying this hasn't been a good tournament, I really hope these games are really good just to prove everyone wrong.
I think they should be. I really think Duke. I think Duke, Florida, or not Duke, Florida. I mean, Duke, Florida should be just a great natty game if it happens. I think Florida Auburn could be an overtime classic. Could be a buzzer beater game like we saw in 2023. I could see Houston Duke being closer than we think it is. I could see a possible like if Houston does make it, I think they'd play very well against a Florida or an Auburn. I think an Auburn Duke game, a rematch, this time now out of Cameron Indoor would be a complete lightning show. It'd be the two best players that we know right now
Right.
in Coop, and it would be the battle of the young guns and the older squad, the older veteran squad in Auburn, and it would really be the test of does age and experience matter, truthfully.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And so, yeah, I'm stoked for these games. Really think they're going to be some good watches. But I think this is going to take care of everything we have for this Final Four preview episode on the Crossover U channel. Please, as always, if you like this podcast or any other content you see in this channel, please, as always, do whatever you can to engage with the content, whether that's liking the video, subscribing to our channel, telling other people about it, leaving your comments down below. We really like to see what you guys have to say regarding our takes or just some of your own takes as well. But that's going to take care of everything. We really appreciate you guys watching. And until our Final Four preview and transfer portal updates, that's going to be coming as well. We'll see you all next time.